Hello everyone. So some interesting information here has been shared today. Now, do you remember in December 2024, a Russian cargo ship, the Ursa Major, sunk under mysterious circumstances off the coast of Spain in the Mediterranean? At the time, when this first sunk, there were suggestions that Ukraine somehow managed to sink it. Now, a later update which I did a video on at the time suggested it was carrying a secret cargo of nuclear technology to North Korea for use in submarines. That definitely seems to be the case, as I'll get to very soon. It was also later revealed that a Russian spy ship visited the wreck and caused more explosions on it. Basically, Russia destroying the evidence. This map, which is on screen now and was shared by the new CNN investigation into this, shows the journey of the Ursa Major from St. Petersburg to the place where it sunk off Spain. So you can see that it departed from St. Petersburg and Ust-Luga after loading for cargo. Officially, the Ursa Major was bound for Vladivostok. It was accompanied by two Russian Navy ships along Europe's coastline. As it passed Portugal, it was tracked by the Portuguese Navy. Now, this is where it gets interesting. On December the 22nd, it slowed suddenly, but the ship officially reported no problems. That changed on the 23rd when an urgent call for help was issued by the Ursa Major, which was then sinking. The captain reported three explosions in the engine room. So, the time frame for this area is on this day is as follows. 11:53 a.m. The call for help was issued. This is a day after the Ursa Major had already stopped, remember. 7:27 p.m., a Spanish military vessel arrives to assist. Now that's quite a big gap between the call for help and the Spanish Navy arriving. They must have been having a siesta. Shortly after it arrived, one of the Russian Navy ships ordered the Spanish ships to keep 2 nautical miles away. The Russian Navy vessel which is there fires flares and then four explosions follow. At this time, the Ursa Major is still floating, and at 11:10, the Ursa Major sinks. So those four explosions seem to me like they were clearly charges placed on it by the Russian Navy to sink the vessel and prevent whatever cargo was on board getting into the Spanish Navy's hands. Now, December 24th, this is during the investigation. The captain tells the Spanish investigators that it was carrying two nuclear submarine reactors. Now, this is where it starts getting more suspicious. Early January 2025, a Russian Navy vessel enters the area, and four explosions are reported. So this is basically Russians destroying any evidence remaining here. It seems pretty obvious that the Ursa Major was up to no good and carrying something that it wasn't supposed to, and that Russia didn't want NATO to find out about. Now, then, in August 2025 and February 2026, a US WC-135 aircraft used for detecting nuclear activity flew over the scene as shown. So basically, a quick recap. The Ursa Major halted on the 22nd, had three explosions on the 23rd a day later, then the Russian Navy sunk it the same day, and then shortly afterwards dropped some more charges on it to destroy the evidence. CNN also shared some satellite imagery of the port at St. Petersburg. The cargo loaded on board is established to be a pair of blue squares and two white objects. One of them is pill-shaped. CNN saying in their report that these white objects fit the profile of nuclear reactor pressure vessels. Both of them disappeared from the port by December 11th, likely put on board the Ursa Major. Now, CNN's new investigation has revealed even more information now, and they've dug into what caused the Ursa Major to halt and then sink. Well, the captain says in the investigation they didn't hear any impact or blast on December the 22nd, when the Ursa Major suddenly slowed. But 24 hours later, three blasts occurred in the engine room. Spanish investigators found that there was a 50 centimetre by 50 centimetre hole in the Ursa Major's hull. So, what caused it? A few suggestions are made. Firstly, that it could be made by a barracuda supercavitating torpedo or similar. Only a handful of countries, including the US, some other NATO nations, and Russia and Iran, have this type of high speed torpedo. This type of torpedo works by firing air ahead of the torpedo to reduce the drag of the water in order to reach high speeds to pierce the hull of a target. Some types don't actually use an explosive charge to cause damage, instead relying on the kinetic impact. The investigator who leaked the info said that the use of one of these would fit the size of a hole in the Ursa Major, and that it could have a noiseless impact when it hits, which does fit with what the captain said about not hearing the blast, and that could have caused the ship to slow and halt. But then, what caused the blast a day later? This isn't suggested by CNN at all in their report, but my personal idea is two theories here. One, the torpedo was meant to detonate but was a dud and accidentally went off when the Ursa Major's crew were either investigating it or trying to disarm it. Or two, it caused damage to the ship which went unnoticed and eventually triggered an explosion, such as leaking fuel or something like that, which detonated later than expected. Now, torpedo isn't the only suggestion in CNN's report. An analyst from Janes says that a limpet mine is more likely, placed against the hull and then detonated. But again, that idea doesn't really explain why the ship halted originally and then had this delayed explosion in the engine room. No theories are given by that in the report at all for some reason. I guess because it becomes then speculation rather than established facts and reports. And nothing was actually concluded as to who was responsible. The report sort of hinting that it could be America or NATO, with a suggestion that it was a barracuda torpedo, but I still think this was Ukraine. NATO has refused to even intercept Russian drones and missiles which enter NATO territory. I just can't see them sinking a Russian ship like this with a torpedo. Boarding it, like America's done with a shadow fleet, maybe. I could definitely see the US boarding this to seize it and seize what's on board. But for me, there's a bit of a big step up from boarding the ship to hitting it with a torpedo and limpet mine and causing loss of life to the crew, as happened here. So, Sherlock Sukumanis here suspects Colonel Ukraine in the Mediterranean with a combination limpet mine and somebody on board. So, Colonel Ukraine not exactly working alone here. Ukraine has organised acts of sabotage before, even on the Russian Navy. Remember, somebody set a charge on a Buoy-M corvette causing a fire in Kaliningrad, and somebody else poured something in the fuel line of a patrol boat a couple of years ago. If I remember right, that was at St. Petersburg. So I think Ukraine managed to get somebody to put a limpet mine on this whilst it was in port. The limpet mine detonated, but either failed to sink the ship, so a secondary device was then planted on board by the same person, who I'm guessing is a crew member, to finish the job, or going back to the delayed secondary explosion theory because of the resulting damage. The original one damaged it but didn't sink it, and then later caused another blast on board too, causing it to start sinking, with Russia, of course, then finishing it off. This definitely seems like a Ukrainian operation to me, especially because, and I think this is even more proof here, in February 2025, it was reported by Reuters that 3 Russian Shadow Fleet oil tankers of Russia's were damaged by mysterious blasts throughout January 2025. This is just a month after the sinking of the Ursa Major. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think this was Ukraine using the same method here. If no other tankers suffered damage like this one, then I guess I would say it was NATO growing a pair of balls and actually hitting the Ursa Major, likely America. I don't think any other NATO nation would pull off such a strike. But with 3 other Russian tankers suffering similar blasts, and these tankers belonging to the Shadow Fleet, I think it's Ukraine. I just don't think that's a coincidence there. So that's it for this update. I hope you found it interesting, and please let me know in the comments what you think, whether I'm on the right ballpark here or completely miss a boat. Now, for those of you who missed it, Muffin my rabbit had her trip to the vet and is fine now. She's had some eye drops, and the vet thinks it's either allergies or some hay that got stuck in her eye, so she's okay, thankfully. Now, I'm going to play a video message from NAFO about the fundraiser that they're doing, featuring new Sukumama's channel patches. The fundraiser's going really well so far, so big thanks to everybody who's donated and helped out. I appreciate it a lot, and Ukraine Help appreciates it a lot as well. The donation link is in the description. Thanks very much, and take care, everybody.
We're the 50th Separate Battalion of the 95th Brigade, drone operators. We thank you friends of charity Fund Help 99 and NAFO and reaching for our support in acquiring a pickup truck for evacuation and transport to positions. With the recital, we will be able to save the lives of our soldiers, carry out missions and achieve better results. Слава Україні!
Героям слава! We are Birds of Fury, strike UAV unit of the Separate President's Brigade, and we need van for our work. We ask for help our friends from NAFO and fund Help 99. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Glory to Ukraine!
Glory to hero!